She had exactly 11 seconds to decide whether to save the man she was sent to destroy or watch him die knowing she could have stopped it. 11 seconds. That's how long it took for the bullet to leave the chamber, cross the ballroom, and bury itself in Rhee's chest while 500 witnesses screamed. But I'm getting ahead of myself, because before you understand why she chose what she chose, you need to know this. Adanna John kissed him 3 hours after she realized he was the one, and he kissed her back with blood still trapped beneath his fingernails. I know what you're already thinking, and no, I'm not explaining that yet, because what happened inside that safe room? When she leaned close enough to breathe into his ear while bullets chewed through the walls outside won't make sense unless you understand why she was on her knees scrubbing his family's blood out of marble floors at 3 in the morning, why she learned how to disappear, why he took a bullet for a maid whose name he'd only bothered to learn 2 weeks earlier, why she warned the man she was sent to ruin, and why, when he finally uncovered every lie she'd told and every move she'd made in the dark, he still came to her room at midnight and asked her to run with him. This is the story of an invisible maid and the killer who noticed her. And before we go any further, you need to know this. By the end of it, you'll have to pick a side. Because when she's holding evidence that could end him, and he's holding a secret that could save her, and they're standing in a room where only one person was ever meant to leave alive, there are no clean choices. Blood doesn't lift easily from Italian marble. Adanna John learned that on her third night in the Rhee mansion, scrubbing on her hands and knees at 3 a.m., while the copper stench burned her nose and her reflection glared back from the flawless floor. Dark skin, deeper shadows under her eyes, the kind of bone-deep tiredness that comes from living as someone else. She'd spent 6 months invisible inside a house full of monsters. 6 months of lowered eyes and quiet steps, drifting through rooms like smoke while men planned murders over breakfast and counted blood-soaked money over dinner. That's the curse of being invisible. You notice everything. You hear everything. You turn into part of the walls, part of the decor, and people forget decor can listen. Adanna had mastered the art of vanishing. She poured drinks while Rhee, patriarch of Korea's most feared crime family, ordered executions. She cleared wine glasses while his underboss argued over trafficking routes. She folded laundry in rooms where guns were cleaned and debts were decided. And every night she returned to her basement room, reached into the lining of her mattress, pulled out a thin notebook, and wrote down every single thing she'd heard. Because Adanna John wasn't just a maid, she was a woman with a reason, and that reason had a name, a face, a laugh that no longer existed anywhere in the world. Ji-yeon, her sister, gone 3 years now, written off as a suicide that never once felt like one. But tonight felt off. The family dinner carried attention. Adanna had learned to read the way sailors read clouds. Do-yoon sat at the head of the table, 60 years old and carved from something harder than flesh. His eyes, the kind of black that swallowed light instead of reflecting it. His daughter, So-yoon, sat to his right, 27 and beautiful the way weapons are beautiful. All clean lines and quiet threat. Empty seats stretched down the table for lieutenants and enforcers, men who killed for money and slept without dreams. And then he entered. Rhee, the adopted son, 31, moving like violence lived in his muscles, like it had been taught young and never forgotten. Adanna had only seen him 4 times in 6 months, always at a distance, always arriving from what the family politely called business trips. She knew better. Business trips meant blood under nails and something dead behind the eyes. He was late. His white shirt bore faint stains he'd tried and failed to erase. His knuckles were scraped raw. A cut above his eyebrow had been butterfly bandaged, rushed and careless, probably done in a moving car. Do-yeon didn't acknowledge him. Somehow, that silence felt sharper than rage. Adanna poured water. Then wine. She moved the way she always did, quiet, unremarkable, forgettable. Her hands didn't shake because they couldn't afford to. In this house, shaking drew attention, and attention ended badly. She reached Hwangil's place when her body turned against her. Maybe it was exhaustion. Maybe it was how his presence tightened the air. Maybe it was her sister's face flashing through her mind at the worst possible second. The bottle tilted. Barely. Enough. One drop of red wine landed on the pristine white cuff of Hwangil's shirt and bloomed outward, sudden and violent, like a fresh wound. The room froze. Seo Yoon's eyes widened. Do Yoon's chopsticks hovered midair. Katura's heart slammed so hard she thought it might split bone. She'd watched a man beaten senseless for serving lukewarm tea. She'd seen a driver erased for scratching a car. A stain on the Golden Sun shirt? What did that cost? Hwan Gil lifted his head, and for the first time in 6 months, someone in that house really saw her. His eyes were brown, an almost kind color that didn't feel kind at all. They were tired, worn, older than the rest of his face by decades. She noticed a scar on his wrist then, coin-shaped and shiny, like an old burn that never quite healed. Say something, she told herself. Apologize, beg, vanish. But he spoke first. His voice came out low, scraped raw, like he'd spent the last hour shouting. 2 words, quiet enough to miss, heavy enough to tilt the world. It's fine. He dropped his gaze back to his plate, lifted his chopsticks. The room breathed again. Adanna bowed, murmured an apology in English-laced Korean she'd practiced to sound awkward, foreign, non-threatening, then backed away. Her hands were shaking now. She let them. She reached the kitchen, set the bottle down, and held the counter until the floor felt solid again. It's fine. Mercy, offered casually, in a house that didn't deal in mercy. Why? The head cook, Sunja, 30 years in service and hollowed out by it, glanced at her. You're lucky, she said in Korean. The son is soft. The father would have broken your fingers. Adanna nodded, slipped back into character, the grateful immigrant maid who didn't grasp how narrowly she'd escaped. Inside, her thoughts sprinted. Soft. Hwan Gil Rhee, rumored to have killed 17 people before 25, was soft. That night, in her basement room, barely wider than a hallway and lit by a window that faced nothing but brick, Adanna sat on her thin mattress and drew out the photograph hidden in her pillowcase. Ji-yeon smiled up at her, 26 forever, wearing the yellow sundress she'd bought for her first day teaching English in Seoul, before the Rhee family's business brushed against her life. Before she saw what she wasn't meant to. Before her body surfaced in the Han River with a suicide note no one bothered to doubt. I'm close, honey, Adanna whispered to the photo, using the honorific Ji-yeon had taught her so proudly. Just a little longer. I'm almost there. Her burner phone, sealed in plastic behind the loose bathroom tile, held 3 unanswered messages. Her editor in New York was losing patience. 6 months undercover, and Adanna had proof of laundering, trafficking routes, political payoffs, but not the one thing she needed: murder. Proof that Do Yoon Rhee had ordered her sister's death, a confession, a recording, a document, something solid enough to survive an international court and reduce this family to ash. And now the son had seen her. The soft son with violent hands and eyes worn thin by something heavier than sleep. That was a problem, a serious one. The plan was to stay unseen for 8 more months, earn trust, maybe reach Do-yeon's private office. Being seen made you memorable. Being memorable invited questions. And questions would tug at the seams of Adanna John's carefully stitched life, until someone noticed the gaps and decided the river needed another body. She traced her sister's face in the photograph. I won't let them erase you, she promised. I won't let them win. Before we go on, let me say this. If you're already locked into Katura's story and you're not subscribed, what exactly are we doing? This woman is gambling her life for the truth and you can't tap one button? It's right there. I'll pause. Good. Now let's continue. The following week crawled by like thick syrup, slow, clinging, falsely sweet, the kind of sweetness Adanna had learned to distrust. She kept her head down and her movements predictable, scrubbed floors, carried trays, washed sheets, worth more than she made in a year. Still, something had shifted. She could feel it. Eyes on her, not hungry, not cruel, just attentive. It was Hwan Gil. He didn't stare or hover, didn't make it obvious. But she'd spot him framed in doorways while she cleaned, or seated in the library when she came to dust, or passing her in the corridor with his pace easing just a breath. He never spoke, neither did she. The space between them hummed, thin and electric. On the 3rd day, she was in the garden behind the kitchen, tipping scraps into the compost. Rain fell lightly, that fine Seoul spring rain that felt like fabric against the skin. She should have gone back inside, but she'd seen the three-legged cat again, the ragged orange thing everyone shooed or kicked at. She'd been feeding it quietly for 2 months, watching bones soften into something closer to life. "Here, baby," she whispered, setting down leftover fish. "Come on. I know you're hungry." The cat crept out, wary as ever, then began to eat. Adanna smiled. A real smile, the first she'd let herself have in weeks. This small, broken creature trusting her felt like a win, however tiny, in a world that kept taking. "You'll get in trouble for that." The voice came from behind her. Adanna spun so fast her foot slid in the mud. Juan Gil stood barely 3 feet away, no umbrella, rain darkening his black shirt until it clung to him. How long had he been there? "I'm sorry," she said at once, slipping into her nervous maid voice. "I didn't mean to waste food. I'll stop. I won't do it again." He tipped his head, studying her like she didn't quite add up. "I didn't say stop. I said you'd get in trouble. My father hates cats. He had the last 3 poisoned." Katura's stomach rolled. The cat kept eating, unaware of how narrow its margin was. She should have backed away, should have bowed, apologized, erased herself. Instead, she heard the words leave her mouth. "Then I'll make sure he doesn't find out." Juan Gil didn't react. Not outwardly, but something moved behind his eyes. A spark. Curiosity? A shared joke? "You're not like the others." "Yes, I am," Adanna said, lying cleanly. I had a cat once. Back home. It died." "Where's home?" His Korean was flawless, but he switched to English, and the English was just as smooth. "American. Educated abroad, like most men born into this kind of money." "New York," she said. That part was true. Everything around it wasn't. "I came for work. I needed the money." "To send back home?" The question sounded light, but it landed heavy. He was sorting her, filing her away, and she couldn't tell whether this was interest or preparation. Something like that. Adanna lifted her gaze, a deliberate choice. Held his eyes long enough to look open, but not bold. Rain threaded the air between them. The cat finished and limped off. "You won't tell anyone? About the cat?" Juan Gil studied her, and the realization hit her hard. He looked lonely, not mildly, not temporarily. Lonely in a way money couldn't solve. "No," he said at last. "I won't tell." He left her there. Adanna stayed in the rain, pulse racing. That was reckless. That was catastrophically reckless. Don't talk, don't connect, don't matter. Every undercover rule broken over a stray. The next morning, a bag of premium cat food sat outside the kitchen door. No note, no signature. Adanna hid it in the garden shed and told herself not to assign meaning to it. After that, the conversations crept in. A remark about the weather when she brought tea to the library. A question about a restaurant in Gangnam while she served breakfast. Comments on the books she dusted, whether she liked to read. Adanna answered with care, stitching truth into lies, shaping a version of herself close enough to pass, distant enough to survive. Then one night, 8 days after the wine, she found him in the library at 2 a.m. She'd been heading for Do-yoon's office, her real objective, the room she'd charted for months. But the library light was on, never on at that hour, and when she looked inside, Juan Gil was there, sitting on the floor, back against a shelf, a bottle of whiskey in one hand and blood on the other. Not his blood, she realized, someone else's, dried dark beneath his fingernails, smeared along his collar. He was studying his hands as if they'd detached from him, as if they were proof of something he hadn't fully accepted yet. Adanna should have gone, should have slipped out and returned to her room without a sound. But there was something in his face, that stripped, vacant look, that hollowed stare. It was too close to the version of herself she saw on sleepless nights, when thinking about her sister made breathing feel optional. She stepped inside, set her cleaning supplies aside, reached into her apron for the tin of tea she carried for nights when sleep refused to come. The library had a hot water dispenser, kept ready for Do-yoon's late reading habits. She poured 2 cups, strong black tea, added honey she paid for herself, then lowered herself to the floor a few feet from Juan Gil. She didn't talk, didn't ask. She slid 1 cup toward him and drank from the other. He stared at the tea, then at her, then back at the tea. Why are you here? Couldn't sleep, Adanna said. You? He let out a laugh that cut more than it amused. Sleep, sure. Like that's something people like me get. People like you? Monsters. He said it plainly, like listing professions. People who do monstrous things and come home and act like the day was ordinary. Adanna took a sip. Rain tapped softly at the windows. Is it acting if you know it isn't ordinary? At last, he lifted the cup, fingers still stained. Deep questions at 2 a.m. from the maid who feeds strays. You keep surprising me. You'd be surprised what maids see, she replied, choosing each word. We're invisible. We notice everything. And what do you see when you look at me? The question came out exposed, unarmored. He was drunk enough to mean it, which made him dangerous in a new way. She should have lied, should have offered something safe. Instead, she gave him something close to true. I see someone who's exhausted, she said softly, tired of being shaped by other people, tired of hands that were taught to destroy things. Hwangil's gaze snapped to hers, and for a split second, the space between them buzzed. You don't know anything about me. I know you didn't have to spare me when I ruined your shirt, Adanna said. I know you buy food for a stray in a house that would rather poison it. I know you're sitting here at 2 a.m. tearing yourself apart over something you were probably never allowed to refuse. That counts for something. There's always a choice. His voice fractured. I could have said no. Could have walked away. Could have been someone else. Could you? Adanna held his stare. Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you were raised behind bars and punished for noticing they were there. The quiet stretched. Then Hwangil did the last thing she expected. He smiled. Small, worn, real. My grandmother used to say that. Before she died, before my father had her killed for being too gentle. Cold flooded Katura's veins, but her face didn't move. I'm sorry. Don't be. I barely remember her. I barely remember anything before this house, this life, this, he motioned to himself, thing they made. You don't have to stay what they shaped you into, Adanna said again. You could put roots somewhere else. Become something new. Where? He laughed. Hollow. There is no somewhere else for people like me. You don't leave this family. You die inside it. The words lingered, heavy as a verdict. Adanna thought of what she'd overheard weeks ago, Do-yoon talking about risks and cleanup and endings that left no mess. She thought of her sister, who tried to exit cleanly, tried to tell the truth. You die inside it. Then don't leave, she said softly. Change it from within. Hwangil stared as if she'd suggested defying gravity. You really don't understand this family. Oh, I understand some of it. Her tone came out sharper than planned, and she caught his attention shift. She softened it. I clean the floors. I know what stains don't come out. They sat quietly, tea cooling, two people wearing lives that didn't quite fit. When Adanna finally rose, Hwangil caught her wrist. Gentle. His hand was warm despite the blood. Thank you, he said. For the tea. For staying with a monster. You're not a monster, Adanna said, unsure if it was true. You're human. That might be worse. She left him there. Back in her room, she noticed her hands trembling. Not fear, something riskier. Attachment. She was beginning to see Rhee as a person instead of an objective. As collateral damage, not the enemy. That was dangerous. Lethally so. Her burner phone held another message. From her editor. Clock's ticking. Deliver or we extract you. Below it, from an unfamiliar number. He's closer than you think. Watch yourself. Adanna erased them both and lay awake until sunrise, thinking about stained hands, mercy over a spill, and how loneliness sounded the same no matter the language. Okay, let's be honest for a second. Thousands of people are going to watch this, get fully wrapped up in it, and then forget to subscribe. Please don't be that person. Adanna is putting her life on the line, and you can't manage one tap? Help her out. Help Ji-Yun out. And help yourself, because you really don't want to miss what comes next. I'm serious. You'll be mad. After that, the conversation settled into something like routine. A reckless, dangerous, completely unavoidable routine. Sometimes Hwangil found her. Sometimes she found him. They talked. About small things. About things that mattered. He told her what it was like growing up in the mansion, about tutors and drills, and the first time his father forced him to watch someone die. She gave him truths padded with lies, stories about New York and family and imagined futures, trimming away the parts that would get her killed. It felt like a dance, or a game, or a fuse burning slowly toward a blast they both knew was coming. On the 13th day, it all broke open. It began with gunfire. Adanna was in the laundry room, folding Seo-yoon's silk blouses, when the windows blew inward, glass spraying like shrapnel. She dropped instantly, arms over her head, as the mansion detonated into noise. Yelling in Korean, more shots, bodies hitting marble. A rival gang, she'd learn later, pushing into Rhee territory. Desperate, stupid, the kind of attack that came every few years, left bodies behind, and always demanded blood in return. She crawled for the door, mind stripped down to one word. Live. Get to the basement. Disappear. She was halfway down the hall when someone seized her from behind, clamped a hand over her mouth, and dragged her back. She fought on reflex, kicked, drove an elbow into ribs, but the hold didn't give. Stop. It's me. Hwan-gil's voice, low in her ear. She froze. He pulled her into a side room, a narrow supply closet, and pinned her to the wall, his body between hers and the hallway. His gun was already out. His other hand stayed over her mouth. Stay quiet, he whispered. They're clearing the house. If they find you, they'll use you. The shooting crept closer. Orders barked. Adanna felt Hwan-gil's heart pounding against her back, fast and frantic. His hand slid from her mouth to her shoulder, firm, grounding. The closet door shook. Someone was checking rooms. Hwan-gil lifted his gun, aimed at the door, and Adanna understood with terrifying clarity that he would pull the trigger without hesitation. Add another corpse to the night, carry another ghost. All to keep her breathing. The door opened. A man dressed in black, weapon raised. He saw them. Hwan-gil fired twice, straight to the chest, the sound exploding in the tight space. The man fell. Hwan-gil didn't pause. He dragged Adanna over the body and down the corridor toward the reinforced safe room she'd found months earlier. How did he know? Because he'd done this before. Because this wasn't chaos to him. This was home. They reached the safe room. Hwan-gil slammed in the code and shoved her inside. Steel walls, shelves of water, medical supplies, weapons enough for a small militia. He sealed the door and sagged against it, chest heaving. You're bleeding, Adanna said. His shoulder red blooming through black fabric. He glanced down like his body had only just caught up with him. A graze. I'm fine. You've been shot. She already had the first aid kit open, her hands calm even as adrenaline screamed through her. Sit. I've had worse. Still, he lowered himself, let her tug his shirt aside, exposing the raw groove across his shoulder where the bullet had kissed and torn away. It bled freely. It would need stitches. She was right, though. He'd survived worse. Their faces hovered close as she cleaned it, as her fingers pressed gauze to skin, as his eyes stayed fixed on hers with a focus that had nothing to do with pain. Why did you do that? She asked softly. Shield me. You could have left. No, Hwan-gil said. I couldn't. Why? Because. His hand lifted, cupping her cheek, gentle even while echoes of violence still rattled the walls. You're the only one here who looks at me like I'm human, like I'm not just this, like I could be more. I can't let them take that. I can't let them take you. Adanna should have stepped back, should have drawn the line, should have remembered that this man, this devastating damaged weapon of a man, belonged to the family that killed her sister, was the thing she'd come to end. Instead, she leaned forward. Their mouths met, unsure, then urgent, like two people breaking the surface for air. His blood smeared her hands. Her tears streaked his skin. The kiss tasted of salt and copper and something irreversible. When they parted, the gunfire had faded. The house was still. Hwan-gil rested his forehead against hers. Run away with me, he breathed. Tonight. I have money they don't track. We'll go somewhere they can't touch us. For one fragile, terrifying moment, Adanna wanted to agree. Wanted to let go of Ji-yeon, of justice, of 6 months spent building a life meant to burn. Wanted to be only a woman choosing a man who'd taken a bullet for her. Then the world snapped back into place. "You don't know why I'm really here," she said. "Then tell me." His gaze didn't waver. "Whatever it is, we'll work through it." "I can't." The words burned going down. "Not yet. Not like this." Kdrama. His hands came up, steadying her face. "Whatever you're hiding, it doesn't matter. I don't care if you're running, if you're lying, if you're not who you claim to be. I don't care. Just come with me, please." She almost did. God, she almost did. But before she could answer, before she could choose the path that would burn everything behind her, his phone vibrated. A message from Seo-yoon. Clear. "They're all dead. Father wants everyone in the main hall." Now, the spell snapped. Hwangil pulled her upright, helped scrub the blood from her hands, smoothed her hair back into the neat, obedient style. In under a minute, they became their masks again. Master and maid, executioner and bystander. Truth buried under fresh lies. They left the safe room apart. Adanna went back to the laundry, stepping over corpses, not looking at the blood bleeding into imported carpet. She lifted the silk blouses and folded them with careful precision, as though the world hadn't just tipped sideways. That night in her basement room, she brushed her fingers over her mouth and told herself it had been tactical. Get close, build trust, use him. But her reflection in the darkened glass didn't believe it. She was falling for him, for the man who left food for strays, who despised his own hands, who kissed like tenderness was something he might forget. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. You're compromised. Immediate extraction. Final notice. She erased it and shut her eyes. The next morning, Do-yoon called a family meeting. Adanna poured coffee, unseen again, while the patriarch stood smiling at the head of the table. I bring excellent news, he said. Hwangil, my son, will marry Song Mi-rae, daughter of the Song family, in 2 weeks. This alliance will strengthen us all and secure our future. Kdrama's hand stayed steady. Hwangil's expression went blank. Seo-yoon frowned. Do-yoon spoke on about power and legacy, but Adanna heard only one thing. 2 weeks. In 2 weeks, he'd be bound here for life, and whatever fragile, reckless thing had sparked between them in that steel room would be extinguished before it ever had breath. Their eyes met across the table. She saw the apology, the surrender. He'd been trained to obey, and obedience was a chain neither of them had learned to unlock. That night, he broke every rule, risked everything, knocked on her door at midnight, soft as a plea. When she opened it, he looked ruined. I told him no, he said. I said I wouldn't do it. He said I don't get a choice. He said if I refuse, he'll know I'm compromised, and he'll find out how, and he'll kill whoever's compromising me. Adanna understood. Compliance kept you breathing. Refusal wrote an obituary, usually shared. It's okay, she lied. It's not. Hwangil stepped inside, shut the door. Kdrama, I wasn't lying. Run away with me. Before the wedding. We'll leave Korea, burn the records. I'll take another name, and you'll never have to see these people again. And where would we go? She was crying now, quiet and ugly, the kind she couldn't stop. Where on earth could we disappear from Do-yoon Rhee? He'd track us. You know that. He would never stop. Then let him chase us, Hwangil said, sharp and reckless. Let him try. I'm exhausted, Kdrama. Exhausted from being sharpened into his blade. Exhausted from ending lives that blur together after a while. Exhausted from waking up and flinching at my own reflection. You remind me I'm still human. You make me believe I could be more than this. Don't let him steal that too. You don't know who I am, Adanna whispered. If you did, you wouldn't ask me to run. You despise me. Prove it. His fingers laced through hers. Whatever you're hiding can't be darker than the blood on my hands. But it was. Worse in ways she couldn't soften, because her secret wasn't hers alone. It circled him, his family. A strategy designed to collapse an empire and bury everyone inside it, including the man standing before her with hope breaking through his eyes for the first time. I need time, she said at last. 2 weeks. Give me 2 weeks to think. If there's a way out for both of us, a real one, I'll tell you everything. Then we leave. Together. Promise? He looked almost boyish then, clinging to the word like a rope. "I promise," Adanna lied, and felt the damage settle in her chest. He kissed her again, gentler now, like she might fracture. Then he was gone, and she stood alone in the room, counting how many lies a body could carry before it finally caved in. Hey, some of you are already leaning in, scrolling slower than you were a second ago. You know that feeling when a story gets under your skin and refuses to let go? This is one of those. If it slips past your feed, you'll think about it later and wonder where it went. You don't have to chase it. Stay here. Follow along. 2 weeks until the wedding. 14 days to gather evidence of Do-yoon's crimes, dismantle the family, save Hwang-gil, and avenge Ji-yeon. 14 days before the man she was falling for married another woman and vanished into his inheritance. 14 days before everything she'd sacrificed either paid off or destroyed her. Time was tightening its grip, and somewhere inside the mansion, behind safes and offices and murmured deals, the truth was waiting. She just had to reach it first, before emotion overruled logic, before the invisible maid was seen clearly enough to be eliminated. The ventilation shaft was never designed to carry the weight of a grown woman, but 6 months inside, the Rhee estate had taught Adanna that its walls hid confessions. Narrow corridors between rooms, doors masked as shelves, and this stretch of galvanized steel threading the second floor, ferrying voices straight from Do-yoon's private office like an open wire. It was 1:43 a.m. when she slid into the space, limbs folded into painful angles, breath shallow and disciplined. 11 days until the wedding. 11 days until Hwang-gil belonged to someone else and was swallowed by the family machine. Her editor's final message had arrived 8 hours earlier. Extract within 48 hours or we're done. Your cover's blown. And she deleted it without replying because she couldn't leave. Not now. Not when she was this close to tugging the thread that could tear everything apart. Below her, filtered through metal, Do-yoon spoke. Calm. Precise. The voice of a man discussing investments instead of executions. "The wedding creates ideal conditions," he said. "All attention diverted. Maximum attendance. Perfect disorder for what must be done." Another voice. Jae-hwan, Hwang-gil's closest friend. His brother in every way blood failed to cover. "Are you sure this is necessary?" The doubt was faint. A hairline fracture in his loyalty, and Adanna pressed her ear tighter to the grate. "Necessary?" Do-yoon laughed, low and humorless. "It's late. My nephew has become a problem. He hesitates. He spares people." That maid has filled his head with softness, with feeling. The kind of rot that gets men buried in this world. "I should have ended this years ago, but I thought he might still be useful. I was wrong." Kdrama's heart misfired. "Nephew, not son. Nephew." Do-yoon went on, his tone sharpening. "Jin Sok's bastard has outlived his purpose. I kept him breathing as leverage, as proof of what betraying this family costs. Now he's digging, asking about his mother, about the fire, about things meant to stay dead. During the wedding, you'll take position on the balcony. When I signal, you'll put him down. The songs will blame a rival syndicate, we absorbed their territory, and I finally put my brother's ghost to rest." "Sir," Jae-hwan said, and Adanna heard the strain beneath the obedience. "He's my friend. We were raised together." "He's already dead. He just hasn't caught up yet," Do-yoon snapped. "And if you care about your own survival, you'll follow orders. Unless you'd like me to inform your daughter's school that their protection fees won't be renewed next term? Children without security tend to attract misfortune, Jae-hwan. It would be a shame." The threat hit like a punch. Jae-hwan's voice emptied out. "I understand. It will be handled." "Good. As for the maid, kill her tonight. She's been wandering, asking questions in her fractured Korean, pretending to be harmless. My people found gaps in her history. She's a spy or a reporter. Either way, she knows too much. Make it look like she disappeared. Domestic staff vanish every day. I'll do it myself," Jae-hwan said, and the quiet defeat in his voice told Adanna everything. He would pull the trigger. He would hate every second. He would still do it, because his daughter was being held hostage by a monster. Adanna didn't stay for more. She crawled backward through the shaft, skin burning against steel, thoughts crashing over each other. "I have to warn him. I have to reach Hwang-gil. 11 days until they kill him. 11 minutes until they kill me. Everything is breaking and I have to move, move, move. She dropped from the vent into a utility closet, her ankle folding beneath her, pain exploding up her leg. She staggered into the hallway, limping, breath-torn, and uneven. Which way? East wing, 3rd floor. She knew the house by heart, but panic scrambled the blueprint. Left or right? She turned left and slammed into solid muscle and expensive cologne. Jae-hwan steadied her before she fell, his hands careful on her shoulders, concern arranged perfectly across his face. "Kdrama, you're injured. What happened? Let me help you." For a heartbeat, she almost let herself believe it, almost forgot he'd just agreed to end her life. Then his touch tightened and she yanked herself free. "Don't touch me." Something flickered in his eyes. Recognition. The concern drained away, replaced by cold clarity. "You were listening. How much did you hear?" "Enough." Adanna backed away, her ankle screaming, "I need Hwan-gil. Now." "That won't be happening." Jae-hwan's hand moved behind him, the gun appearing as easily as a phone. "I am sorry. You seem decent. You just chose the wrong family to look into." He guided her toward the service stairs, the ones that led underground, to furnaces and sealed rooms and places where bodies dissolved into nothing, and questions followed. Kdrama's mind tore through possibilities. Scream and die, fight and lose, run and collapse, talk, stall, find air. "You don't want this," she said, forcing her voice steady. "I can see it. You're not a killer, Jae-hwan." "You'd be amazed what pressure turns people into," he said softly. "I've killed 11 people for this family. What difference does one more make? Those were commands. This is something else. This is murdering an unarmed woman because a despot said so." "That despot has my daughter," Jae-hwan said, and something cracked loose in his voice. "If I refuse, Minji suffers. She's 8 years old. 8. I won't let him put a hand on her." The panic in him sparked an idea in Kdrama's mind. Reckless, desperate, her only move. "Your daughter is safe," she said. "I can prove it." Jae-hwan hesitated mid-step. "What did you say?" "I'm a journalist. I've been digging into this family for 6 months. That included everyone close to Do-yoon. Your daughter, Min-ji, attends Seoul International Academy. The security there is privately funded by you. I have photos from last week. She's okay." "You're lying." "But his gun dipped. Barely." "Check your phone," Adanna urged. "Call the school. Confirm it yourself. Do-yoon has been feeding you fear to keep you obedient? But your daughter hasn't been touched. Not once." Jae-hwan's grip trembled. "If this is a lie, if you're stalling, I'll make sure you regret it." "I'm not lying. Call." He pulled out his phone with his free hand, never fully lowering the gun, dialed fast, waited. When someone picked up, he spoke rapidly in Korean, demanding confirmation, his voice tight. Adanna watched his face shift. Confusion, relief, understanding, fury. When the call ended, his eyes shone. "She's safe," he said. "She's been safe all along. He lied to me. That bastard lied to me." "He lies to everyone," Adanna said carefully, "including Hwan-gil. Did you know he isn't Do-yoon's adopted son? He's his nephew. Do-yoon killed his father and kept the boy as proof." Jae-hwan lowered the gun fully. "Say that again?" "I'll show you. I'll show both of you. But we have to reach Hwan-gil before Do-yoon realizes I'm still breathing." Jae-hwan studied her, suspicion and resolve tearing at him. Then he slid the gun away. "If you're using me, if this is some twisted play, I'll end it myself. But if you're telling the truth, if Do-yoon really..." He stopped. "Just show me." They moved through the house like shadows. Jae-hwan holding Adanna upright, her ankle useless now, swelling inside her thin shoe. They reached Hwan-gil's door, and Jae-hwan knocked, 3 sharp knocks. When it opened, Hwan-gil stood there in sleep pants, hair rumpled, eyes sharp and ready until he saw them. "What's going on?" he began, and Adanna pushed past him into the room, Jae-hwan following, locking the door. "Your father is planning to have you killed," Adanna said flatly. No time for softness, no mercy in the truth. "At the wedding, 11 days from now, Jae-hwan was ordered to shoot you during the ceremony and frame it as a rival hit. Hwan-gil's gaze snapped to his friend. Jae-hwan, it's true, Jae-hwan said quietly. He told me an hour ago, threatened my daughter if I didn't comply. Except he glanced at Kdrama. Apparently, that was a lie too, along with everything else. Hwan-gil sank onto the edge of the bed like his legs had betrayed him. Why? Because you're not who you were told you are, Adanna said. Her hands were shaking now, adrenaline finally cracking the dam. I came into this house 6 months ago searching for answers about my sister, Ji-yeon Baptiste. She died 3 years ago, ruled a suicide, but I knew it was murder. I knew your family was involved. I've been collecting proof, listening, recording everything. So, you lied? Hwan-gil said, voice flat. Everything between us was a lie. It began as an investigation, Adanna said, but it didn't stay that way. You changed it. And tonight I heard something that rewrites everything. You're not Do-yeon's adopted son, you're his nephew. Your father was Rhee Jin-suk. Do-yeon killed him 31 years ago to seize control. Your mother, Camille, died trying to pull you from a fire Do-yeon set. You were 3. He took you, raised you, shaped you into a weapon, and erased the truth. The room held its breath. Hwan-gil's breathing came fast and shallow, like he couldn't pull in enough air. That's insane. I'd remember. I'd know. You were 3, Jae-hwan said softly. Trauma erases things. But it explains everything, brother. The nightmares. How fire makes you flinch. The scar on your wrist you can't explain. Hwan-gil stared at his wrist, at the raised, glossy skin he'd always been told came from an accident he didn't recall. He stood abruptly, pacing to the window. This can't be real. You're lying. Both of you. This is some kind of scheme. A coup? You want me to turn against my father? Your uncle, Adanna said. And I can prove it. I have records, testimony, evidence. But right now, we need to move. Because she checked her watch. 30 minutes. Jae-hwan is meant to report that I'm dead. When he doesn't, Do-yeon will know, and the entire organization will come for us. Where would we even go? Hwan-gil demanded. He controls half of Seoul. His reach spans Asia. There's nowhere to disappear. The door blew inward. Not kick detonated. A breaching charge tore through the wood, smoke flooding the room. 3 men rushed in, armed, faces masked. Jae-hwan reacted instantly, gun up, firing, dropping one. The other 2 fired back, and Jae-hwan fell, blood spreading across his shoulder. Hwan-gil yanked Adanna behind him, his body blocking hers. The attackers advanced, and then one collapsed, shot from behind. Everyone froze. In the doorway stood Aster. The head housekeeper Adanna had barely registered in 6 months, holding a pistol with the easy certainty of someone trained to kill. Move. Now. Questions later, Aster said in flawless, unaccented English, her voice clipped and absolute. She put a round into the last attacker, then hauled Jae-hwan upright. Can you walk? I'm fine. Jae-hwan grunted, palm pressed to his bleeding shoulder. Who are you? Someone who's been buried in this nightmare longer than her, Aster said, nodding at Kdrama. Interpol, 4 years undercover. Now move before backup floods the house. They ran. Through hallways Adanna had scrubbed, past bedrooms she dusted, downstairs she climbed 1,000 times, carrying linens and tea. Aster steered them into a wing Adanna had never entered, pressed her hand against what looked like blank wall. A hidden door side open, revealing a room dense with monitors, cables, and weapons. Safe room, Aster said, slamming 3 locks home. Lead-lined, soundproof, off-grid. We've got a few hours, maybe less. She crossed to the screens. Guards were already swarming. Do-yeon barking orders. The house shifting from mansion to battlefield. Start explaining. Hwan-gil said to Aster, "Who are you really, and why should I believe you?" Aster pulled a file from a drawer and spread it on the steel table. Aster Kwan, Interpol, Organized Crime Division. I've been building a case on Do-yeon Rhee for 4 years. And you, she said to Hwan-gil, are the hinge this whole thing turns on. Not because of what you've done, because of who you are. She slid out photographs. A young man who looked painfully familiar. A black woman with warm eyes and an easy smile. A baby with a distinct birthmark on his wrist. This is Rhee Sok, your father. This is Camille Baptiste, your mother. This is you, at 6 months. Katura's breath hitched. Baptiste. My sister's name? My name. Not chance, Aster said. Camille was Haitian American. Your sister, Ji-yeon, came to Korea 3 years ago, researching family history. She'd heard stories about a cousin who married a Korean man, vanished in a fire. She followed the trail, asked the wrong questions, got too close. Do-yoon had her killed. The room swayed. Adanna gripped the table. My sister died looking for him? For family? She died because she connected the dots, Aster said gently. Found records of Camille's death. The infant who survived. Started tracking where that child went. She got too close, and Do-yoon erased the risk. I have her files. She was meticulous. She knew the baby was taken, suspected family involvement, but couldn't prove it before. She stopped before they silenced her. Hwan-gil stared at Camille's photograph like it might blink or breathe or say his name. I don't remember her. I don't remember any of this. You were 3 when your world collapsed, Aster said softly. The mind seals itself off, but the body keeps score. The scar, the dreams. That constant sense of being misplaced in Do-yoon's house, those are pieces trying to come back. If this is true, Jae-hwan said, pale now, slumped against the wall with blood leaking between his fingers. If Jin-sok was the elder brother, then Hwan-gil is the rightful heir. Everything Do-yoon built is stolen. Exactly, Aster said, which is why he kept you close, controlled. You were his prize and his risk. As long as you stayed ignorant, you were useful. But lately you've been questioning, thinking for yourself. And that maid, she nodded toward Katura, reminded you what kindness feels like. That made you dangerous. So what now? Hwan-gil asked. His voice sounded scraped raw. You tell the truth, and then what? I inherit a criminal empire I never wanted. I avenge parents I can't remember. What does this end in? Justice, Adanna said quietly. For your parents, for my sister, for everyone Do-yoon crushed, we expose him, destroy the machine, make sure he never hurts anyone again. And how do we do that while hiding in a basement with half the underworld looking for us? Hwan-gil shot back. The wedding, Aster said. 11 days. Every major syndicate will attend. Politicians, executives, everyone Do-yoon owns. We release everything at once. Evidence to the press. Warrants issued internationally, raids across the city. We do it publicly, so there's no burying it, no spinning it away. That's suicide, Hwan-gil said. It's the only move that works, Aster replied. I have teams in 4 countries. Once the files go live, it's over. But we need those 11 days to lock it down, keep you alive, make the case unbreakable. You said 3, Jae-hwan said weakly. I'm not part of this. You are now, Aster said. You didn't pull the trigger. To Do-yoon, that's betrayal. You're already marked. My daughter, Jae-hwan, began. Is being moved into protective custody, Aster said. I made the call earlier. She's guarded. Safe. You just have to trust me. Trust lingered in the room like smoke. Adanna looked at Hwan-gil and saw something fracture and reassemble behind his eyes. We're family, she said softly. You and me. Cousins. What's left of it? Family, Hwan-gil echoed, laughing without humor. A liar and a killer. That's rich. You didn't know, Adanna said. About my sister. About the victims. You followed orders from a man who shaped you from childhood. That doesn't absolve you, but it explains you, does it? He turned to Aster. How many? Do you have the number? Aster didn't flinch. 14 confirmed over 7 years. All ordered. All criminal targets, though not all deserve to die. You were molded young, Hwan-gil, a soldier in a war you never chose. 14, he whispered. 14 lives. And I'm meant to just move on. You're meant to choose differently now, Jae-hwan said. He slid down the wall, sitting in his own blood, his skin ashen. We've all crossed lines, every one of us. But we have 11 days to do one thing right. Burn it down. Make it count. You need treatment, Aster said, kneeling with the kit. That wound is bad. I've had worse, Jae-hwan muttered. But he let her cut fabric, pack gauze, steady him. Adanna sat beside Hwan-gil. He wouldn't look at her. I'm sorry, she said, for lying, for using you, for waiting too long. Would it have changed anything? If you'd told me then that my life was built on blood, would I have believed you, or would I have handed you over? Adanna thought about it, probably the second. Exactly. So maybe the lies were necessary. Maybe survival always asks for ugly choices. He finally looked at her. Your sister, Ji-yeon. What was she like? Kind, Adanna said, and the tears she had damned for 3 years finally spilled. Brilliant. She believed people were better than they proved themselves to be. She came to Korea to teach, to matter, to find the family she thought had been lost and bring them together. And they killed her for wanting that. I am sorry, Hwan-gil said. I am sorry I did not stop it. Sorry I helped power the machine that crushed her. You did not know, Adanna said again. But now you do. So what will you do with it? The quiet stretched thin. Then Hwan-gil stood, crossed to Aster's board, and studied the faces of parents he never met. Of himself as a child he could not remember. What do you need from me? Everything, Aster said. Access, codes, internal structures only you understand. Testimony, DNA, your name, your voice. You are the linchpin, Hwan-gil. With you, we finish this. Without you, he survives. And if it fails, then we die, Aster said calmly. But not on our knees. Pause with me for a second. You didn't get this far by accident. Something in the story tightened its fingers around your attention, and you let it. Now imagine closing this and realizing later you can't quite find it again. The mood gone, the tension diluted, the moment lost. That's usually how it happens. Subscribing doesn't interrupt anything. It just keeps the door open. One quiet click, and the story knows where to return when you're ready for more. Alright, that's enough interruption. Let's go back to where we were. The next 11 days blurred into motion and planning. Aster rotated them through safe houses across Seoul, switching locations every 48 hours. A cramped apartment in Hongdae, a warehouse in Incheon, a quiet hotel in Busan. Always ahead, barely. Adanna wrote non-stop, shaping 6 months of fragments into an exposé ready to detonate across 8 countries at once. Jae-hwan recovered and reached out quietly to others inside the organization who had grown sick of Do-yoon's cruelty, building something fragile and dangerous. Aster coordinated non-stop with international agencies, aligning raids, warrants, arrests, timing everything to the second. And Hwan-gil went digging through himself. He accessed hidden accounts, traced decades of laundering and theft. He mapped guard schedules, fail points, internal blind spots. He recorded testimony about orders he followed, blood he saw spill, violence he helped maintain. Each truth peeled something off him. Each confession burned. He did not know if what waited at the end was forgiveness or ruin. On day 7, Seo-yoon found them. Adanna woke to cold metal against her temple, and Seo-yoon's voice, precise and steady, telling her not to move, not to scream, not to complicate things. Across the room, Hwan-gil woke to the same reality. Seo-yoon had brought one guard, gun raised, while she held 2 weapons, one aimed at each of them. Aster lay unconscious in the corner, breathing slow and even, drugged but alive. Jae-hwan was gone. He had left an hour earlier to meet a contact. The timing felt wrong in a way that made the air tighten. You have made a mess, Seo-yoon said. Father has placed a bounty on you large enough to bankroll a country. From Beijing to Tokyo, people are hunting you. And here you are, asleep in a cheap Busan hotel like tourists. So shoot us and collect, Hwan-gil said, voice dull with exhaustion. Get it over with. Seo-yoon lowered her guns. Or, she said, and the flawless calm finally fractured, you could let me help you. The room went still. What? Adanna managed to say. Seo-yoon's hands were trembling. The first real crack Adanna had ever witnessed. Do-yoon Rhee is my father, but he is also the man who killed my mother when I was 8 years old. He poured pills into her wine because she threatened to leave him, take me with her, expose everything he was. I watched her die over 3 hours while he rehearsed grief for the doctors. I have hated him every single day since. But I was alone, powerless, too afraid to move. She looked at Hwan Gil. Then you changed. You questioned things. You hesitated. You showed what looked like weakness, but was really courage. And I realized maybe I was not alone anymore. You are his successor, Hwan Gil said. You have everything to lose. I have nothing, Seo Yoon said quietly. I have money I cannot touch without permission. Power that is really his will moving through my hands. A future that is just his past recycled. You want to burn it all down? She smiled, sharp and hungry. I will bring the fire. But I want in. I want to watch his face when it falls apart. I want him to know I helped end him. What can you give that we do not already have? Aster asked. She was awake now, sitting upright, rubbing her neck where the dart had struck. Access, Seo Yoon said. Wedding security protocols in real time. The full guest list with seating charts, control room access codes, and this. She pulled a small drive from her jacket. 22 years of digital records. My father's private archive. Every murder, every bribe, every deal. I have been copying them since I was 14. Protection. Vengeance. Call it what you want. Why now? Adanna asked. Why help us now? Because I am tired, Seo Yoon said, and for the first time her voice sounded young, fragile, human, tired of pretending, tired of performing perfection, tired of carrying my hatred alone. You three, damaged as you are trying to do something right. I want to belong to something right before I die. You think we are all going to die, Jae-won said. He had returned and stood in the doorway, gun raised but not fixed on anyone. I think we are trying to dismantle one of the most powerful crime families in Asia, Seo Yoon replied. The odds for that kind of defiance are historically unforgiving, but I would rather die opposing him than live obeying him. Would you not? The silence answered. Jae-won lowered his gun. Aster opened her laptop, took the drive, and began scanning its contents. Hwan Gil and Seo Yoon met each other's eyes, two children shaped by the same cruelty. Two weapons sharpened in the same fire, finally seeing each other clearly. I am sorry, Hwan Gil said softly, that he hurt you too, that you had to carry it alone. We are not alone anymore, Seo Yoon said. For better or worse, we are bound together now. The last 4 days became an exercise in precision. Seo Yoon went back to the mansion and slipped effortlessly into her role. Calm, obedient, reassuring. She told Do-yoon there were no real leads, no loose ends. At the same time, she fed them live intelligence, shifting security details, his moods, his growing suspicions sliding into paranoia. Aster coordinated with international agencies, setting raids to hit Seoul, Tokyo, Hong Kong, and Manila at the same hour. Adanna finished her article, 27,000 words of evidence, documents, photographs, audio, testimony, and Hwan Gil prepared himself for what waited ahead, the reckoning with the man who had taken his life before he could remember it. On the 10th day, Jae-hwan took a call. When he ended it, the color had drained from his face. What is it? Hwan Gil asked. Do-yoon knows, Jae-hwan said. About Seo Yoon. About everything. He just called. He said if she does not kill you herself during the wedding, he will know she has betrayed him. He is testing her. What did she say? Aster asked sharply. She said she would manage it, Jae-hwan replied. She said to trust her. Then he looked at Hwan Gil. She also told me to tell you to wear body armor, just in case. In case she actually shoots me, Hwan Gil said. Wonderful. Nothing like a family gathering that ends in gunfire. Half-sister, Seo Yoon said from the doorway. She had arrived without warning and leaned against the frame. And I will not actually shoot you. I will shoot close. Squibs, breakaway glass, smoke, very dramatic. You fall, look convincingly dead, panic spreads, and we release everything. I have cameras ready. 47 angles of his face when he realizes. You really planned all this, Adanna said. I have had 22 years to imagine my father's collapse. Seo Yoon replied. I do not do things halfway. The wedding is tomorrow. Everything is set. All that remains is execution. Terrible phrasing, Jae-hwan muttered. The wedding arrived under sharp winter sunlight. the kind of flawless weather that felt cruel. The venue was the Shilla Hotel. 500 guests filled the space, criminals and politicians, businessmen and gang leaders sipping champagne together. Adanna moved through the room as catering staff, hair covered, face flattened into anonymity. Aster blended with hotel security, ready to lift lockdowns when the moment came. Jae-hwan stayed among the guests, armed, watching, and Hwan Gil stood with the groom's party, expensive suit over body armor, waiting to either die or begin again. The ceremony started at 3 p.m. on the dot. The bride looked frightened. The groom looked pleased. Do-yoon stood at the front, commanding, speaking about legacy, unity, blood. His voice was warm, reassuring, the voice of a man who had not ordered multiple deaths in recent weeks. At 3:15, as he raised his glass, every screen in the ballroom went dark. Displays meant for memories, and smiles died at once. Then, Katura's recorded voice filled the hall, steady and unmistakable. "My name is Adanna John, investigative journalist. What you are about to see comes from a 6-month investigation into the Rhee crime family. Watch carefully and decide for yourselves who you are honoring today." The screens came alive, bodies, crime scenes, victims. Audio of Do-yoon giving orders, calm and exact. Financial trails spanning decades. Video of interrogations, then the truth at the center. Hospital records from 31 years ago documenting Camille Rhee's death by smoke inhalation. Autopsy images of Jin-sok Rhee, beaten before the fire. Orphanage files of a baby pulled from the ruins. DNA results linking that child to Hwan Gil, a 99.9% match. The room exploded. Shouting, panic, guests rushing exits. Do-yoon shouted commands, but no one heard him. Security surged, only to find the doors sealed by Aster's override. And through it all, Hwan Gil walked straight toward Do-yoon, calm, deliberate, cutting through the chaos as if it parted for him. They faced each other at the heart of the ballroom. Uncle and nephew, killer and survivor, ruler and tool. Do-yoon's face had gone dark with fury, whatever control he once had splintering. "You," he snarled. "Ungrateful leech! After everything I handed you, I should have let you die with your useless father." "But you didn't," Hwan Gil said, his voice calm. "You spared me. You shaped me into your instrument. And now that instrument is aimed straight at you." Do-yoon drew his gun. Several guards followed suit, but police were already pouring in. Korean National Police, Interpol, FBI liaisons, a global operation Aster had stitched together flawlessly. "Drop your weapons," voices rang out in Korean, then English, then Mandarin. "You are surrounded. This ends now." Do-yoon never lowered his gun. He kept it trained on Hwan Gil's chest. "If this ends, you end with me." He fired. The shot cracked through the room. Hwan Gil collapsed, red blooming across his white shirt, vivid and convincing. Seo-yoon screamed on cue. Do-yoon smiled, satisfied, and turned toward the officers. Then Hwan Gil rose to his feet. The blood was staged, the injury fake, and the horror on Do-yoon's face when truth landed was worth every gamble. "Did you really believe I would make this simple?" Hwan Gil said. "That I would stand here unguarded, trusting you not to kill me in front of hundreds of witnesses? You taught me better. You taught me to plan for betrayal." Police rushed Do-yoon, tore the weapon from his grip, forced him down. He thrashed, shouted threats, swore vengeance, but it was finished. The evidence was already streaming to major networks across 8 countries. Raids were unfolding across Asia at the same time. His empire was falling live, before the eyes of everyone who fed it. Adanna pushed through the crowd and reached Hwan Gil, checking him instinctively, though she knew it was staged. "You good?" "I am breathing," he said. "That feels like a victory." Seo-yoon stepped closer, her mask gone, tears spilling freely. "Is it really done? Is it actually this easy?" "It is not easy," Aster said, joining them. "It took years of groundwork, months of precision, and luck we did not earn. But yes, he is finished." They watched officers drag Do-yoon away in cuffs, still shouting, still posturing, shrinking with every step until he was only an old man stripped of fear and reach. Around them, the ballroom buzzed with disorder. Guest detained, evidence logged, justice finally turning its gears. Jae-hwan reached them, blood on his sleeve from a brief fight, but standing. "My daughter," he asked Aster. "Safe," she said. "Protected. You will see her tomorrow." He nodded, then looked at Hwan Gil. "We did it. Somehow, we lived," Hwan Gil said. "Whether it was right, whether it redeems us, I cannot say, but we lived." Hwan Gil finally asked what he had been carrying for months. "Do you forgive me? For who I was? For what I did before I knew better?" "Adanna, I forgive you for being a victim, for surviving, for staying human in a place designed to turn you into a weapon. What you did still matters. Those choices have weight you will always carry. But you are not frozen there. You are changing. You are trying." "What if trying is not enough?" he asked. "What if I can never escape it?" "Then you keep trying anyway," she said. That is what healing looks like. Not erasing the past, not pretending, just choosing, every day, to do a little better than the day before. They sat quietly, two people learning what family could mean, learning how to grow something decent from damaged ground. If this story stayed with you, if you felt these characters breathe, if something in it lingered after the last line, do 3 things for me. Subscribe so you don't lose stories like this to the algorithm. Like the video so it finds the people who need it. And share it with someone who believes in justice, redemption, and the complicated space between good and evil where most of us actually live. These stories take weeks to build, and your support is the reason they keep coming. Until next time, remember this. You are not defined by what happened to you. You are defined by what you choose next. Stay safe, keep choosing truth, and never underestimate the power of becoming better than your past. Peace.